it's Bijan Robinson, Superflex leagues. He's the first one off the board at average pick 12.
Yep. And he's the only running back right now with a first round ADP.
Rightfully so.
I have no issue with this. It is odd for a lot of people. Like, he hasn't even taken a snap in the NFL and he's the number one Dynasty running back. Well, specifically with Dynasty, you need that youth. You need that youth on your side. He's got it, obviously. He has the first round draft capital, top 10 pick. And even I was looking at guys over the past 10 years that were top 15 draft picks at the running back position. On average, their first season, on average, and this is including Melvin Gordon, who had kind of a dud, on average, they were running back 7 overall. So,
and he did nothing his first
He did
year.
nothing.
Yeah.
All of those other 5 guys of those 6 other than Melvin Gordon were all top 10 running backs in their very first season. So we should expect Bijan Robinson to perform right away, right from the rip. And he's got legitimate RB1 upside each and every season for the next 5-8 years.
I don't expect. I know. Like, if Bijan stays healthy, he's top 5. He's gonna have. I told you guys at the cabin. Like, he's gonna have 2,000 all-purpose yards.
I mean, he's in a perfect system. Obviously, they want to run the heck out of the ball there, and he's got a great skill set. He's an all-around guy that they never need to take off the field. So yeah, I agree that he's going to have a monster season. I don't know that it's going to be 2,000 all-purpose yards or anything like that, but I mean, he could easily eclipse the 1,500 yard type of range all-purpose. Without even like batting an eye, you know what I mean?
Right.
So the question for you guys I have right out the gate, that would have to do with Bijan Robinson, and we're gonna kind of talk like some rookies here and maybe some value behind that aren't rookies, because that's where the value is. I preach on the show more than anybody else, saying, I'd rather take a proven asset that I know is good over the upside of a rookie any day, because you have a 50% chance of missing it as it is just being a rookie. It doesn't matter how much we love the prospect. I know Bijan Robinson's most likely an outlier. Any running back who I've ever felt as strongly about Bijan about has never failed, ever. Like that, he seems like so if I say bulletproof, he seems bulletproof, and I don't like to throw the word bulletproof around. Like, I don't be analyst like, oh, he's generational, like
right.
Bijan's in that category.
He absolutely is, man, and we don't throw it around lightly. I think, and that's important.
He's in the Zeke and Saquon.
Only other running backs I've ever felt that way about. So the question for you guys that I would have is, Bijan Robin going 112, Superflex, tight end premium. How do you guys feel about? I'm going to dismiss all these other position players like AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb. Like, I'm okay taking Bijan ahead of those guys. But what about the likes of Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray?
I mean, obviously, That's hard for me. I mean, any of those guys that you just mentioned, they're just going to be higher scoring players week to week. I mean, Deshaun Watson, maybe not. He was only, I think, at around 16 points last year, 17 points per game. So he might not be.
Oh, dude, he's like the Jeffersons. He's on his way up.
That's what you think.
He don't fry fish in the kitchen.
No, he also doesn't hit wide open wide receivers in the flat. He bounces them in or air mails them over his head.
Stop living in the past.
I mean, it was last year.
I was going to say Kyler Murray for sure. For sure.
Here's the thing about Bijan.
You would take Bijan over Kyler Murray?
Yes.
I would feel okay about that, because Kyler Murray I don't see as like a long-term asset.
No.
At the quarterback position. So I would be okay taking a generational running back that I think I'm going to get 7 or 8 years out of, as opposed to a quarterback who I'm not sure is on the steadiest of ground long-term.
Even with Dak and Deshaun, they're both, they're probably, we would say, in their prime right now. So they could easily both have another 10 years to go in their career. So right now you're at about a similar time frame as to, what we would expect a generational running back to be at. We could see him going for about
8 years for a generational running back?
10 years.
10's pushing it, buddy.
10's pushing it, but it's still being in the league anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think we're seeing that to the point where he's getting pretty close age-wise. But on top of that, the difference that he makes at the position versus those guys making at their same position, do we really expect it? And they could, but do we expect consistently Watson, Murray, and Prescott to be top 5 at their position? Probably not. I mean, I don't see them booting out Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. I don't see those guys getting booted out often. And then you also have Lawrence and Jackson, which are in that same range. Like, I don't see them getting But Bijan Robinson, do I think for the next 5 to 7 years that he's going to regularly be a top 5 running back? I do. We've seen that out of guys like Zeke and, some of these top running backs. So I think that that's a realistic possibility. And when you get that difference maker at a position, I'm for it. I usually don't draft running backs in the first round, but Bijan would be the exception.
Bijan would be an exception to the rule. There's no way I take him ahead of Deshaun Watson. There's just no way. And I know it's easy. It's hard for me to see through my Browns-colored glasses, and I always admit, like if I'm every time I talk about Baker Mayfield, I admitted that like this is all homerism. I'm not here talking about the player. It was all kind of in jest. But with Deshaun Watson, in all seriousness, despite of everything that outside of the NFL, which is I'm just going to focus here in the NFL. In that short instance of last year, everything went through. Before that, Deshaun Watson's been an elite quarterback from the time he was in high school to the time he was in college at Clemson. Literally put Clemson beat Alabama at Clemson to coming in and dominated with Houston with no weapons around him. So could those 2 years really break Deshaun Watson? Of course, a quarterback can be broken, but at the same time, when we're shooting for upside, like I'm always going to shoot for the quarterback. With Dak Prescott, I don't feel like Dak Prescott is special, but I do surround him with Jerry Jones will always surround him with weapons and will always be in position to succeed. In the quarterback at that position, with how thin it is right now, I would be hard pressed to take Bijan ahead of those two guys. I wouldn't argue it. Like I'm not going to say that's a terrible pick. Like, I would easily take him over Kyler Murray, but I still feel like the move there is quarterback. But I'm also in the Superflex tight end premium draft. Like it's hard for me not to take a quarterback in the first round. Even we were talking earlier about a different player. Mm-hmm. Even with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase on the board, it's hard for me not to grab a quarterback because when you're a have-not at the quarterback position in Superflex, it becomes almost impossible for you to win your league. It really does, because when you're a have-not, then it means there's more haves out there. Mm-hmm. And there's only 32 quarterbacks in the NFL, and the bottom third are pretty much, from a fantasy football standpoint, pretty much trash. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want those guys. And, of course, we have the elite, but the elite quarterbacks, like you mentioned, these young guys, I mean, we're starting to see a good mold here. Like, we've seen it. We've seen the dynasty market turn at the receiver position. We talked about this, I think it might have been last week on the podcast too. Like, where do these receivers finish amongst all these young guys that are already in this class? Like, They are here to stay for a while. And not even mention older guys like Tyreek Hills, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs.
Sure.
Same with these quarterbacks. I mean, obviously Caleb Williams, Drake Mays is going to come in. Caleb Williams is, he's the next Trevor Lawrence. But we have a good group of young guys here. We do. With Lamar re-signing. And Lamar is probably one of the biggest question marks. But Trevor Lawrence, an ascendant player. Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields. These guys, once you're outside that bubble, it's easy to say, okay, I'm going to settle, right? Like, you take Bijan Robinson at 111. But if the 112 was smart, he's going quarterback there. He already saw how that goes. And now all of a sudden you're looking at Kyler Murray as your quarterback one. And like we mentioned, I don't love the long-term success there. I think Arizona is one of the worst teams in the NFL this year. If they finish with the 1-1 next year, you think they're not taking Caleb Williams?
No, they probably will. They'll have to figure out what to do with Kyler in that contract.
You know what I mean? So they're in a bad spot. I mean, I literally think it's the Rams and the Cardinals chasing 1-1. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Houston. I think the Rams are abysmal as well. Like, I think those two teams are literally fighting for the 1-1, 1-2, and then they'll end up with 1-3 with the Houston pick. So if you're doing a Superflex, yeah, you get Bijan, you're pumped. But in Superflex, do you feel real comfortable all of a sudden now that your quarterback is Kyler Murray, is your 1-1 quarterback?